Chapter 2. The Whispering Eyes. The morning light had no warmth. It filtered through the half-closed curtains in pale, thin strips, painting Eleanor's room in grey. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, but sleep had abandoned her long ago. The doll sat on her dresser, perfectly still, as if waiting. And maybe it was. She hadn't touched it since yesterday evening. Every time she glanced at it, a chill ran down her spine. Its head was tilted ever so slightly, the painted smile more pronounced than she remembered. That smile, it seemed almost deliberate. She tried to convince herself it was nothing. It was just porcelain, just paint, just a thing. Yet she could feel it in her bones. Something was wrong. By afternoon, the house itself seemed to change. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls. Doors that had been closed yesterday now stood ajar, and the air smelled faintly of old wood and damp earth, though the windows were shut. Eleanor walked from room to room, checking locks, shaking doors, muttering under her breath. Nothing could account for the subtle shifts she saw, the tiny differences that made her question whether she was imagining it all. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at her reflection in the darkened window, and thought she saw movement behind her in the glass. A flash of something. Nothing? A hand. A shadow. When she turned, the room was empty. She shivered and looked back at the window. Her reflection was just her, alone. But then she caught it. A flash of glass eyes, glinting faintly behind her own reflection. The doll had moved. It began small. At first, it was just subtle things. A hair out of place, the faint impression that the doll had shifted position when she looked away. Books were slightly misaligned on the shelf. A teacup she had left on the table was now on the floor. Eleanor blamed fatigue, stress, maybe a wandering imagination. But when she found the tiny footprints leading from her bedroom to the living room, she could no longer deny it. The footprints were delicate, almost impossibly small, and powdery, like ash. They stopped at the base of the staircase, as if the doll had climbed the stairs on invisible legs. Eleanor stared at them for long minutes, every nerve screaming, before finally deciding to clean them up. That evening, she lit a single lamp and sat on the sofa, trying to read a book. But the words swam before her eyes. Every few minutes, she thought she heard something. A soft, almost imperceptible creak from above. Footsteps? She froze, heart pounding. Another creak. Then silence. She closed her eyes. A whisper. "Don't leave me." The voice was faint, childlike, and it seemed to echo from the attic. Eleanor's eyes snapped open. The doll sat on the dresser, perfectly still, its head tilted. Its painted smile seemed sharper now, knowing. She told herself it was impossible. Dolls did not speak, dolls did not move, dolls did not watch. And yet, she could feel it. Night fell, heavy and suffocating. Eleanor stayed in her room, light on, doors locked. But she knew, as surely as she knew her own name, that she was not alone. Shadows clung to the corners of the ceiling, stretching and twisting as if alive. The ticking of the clock sounded like footsteps approaching, then retreating, then approaching again. She heard it, soft scratching on the walls, like fingernails running over plaster. She tried to stand, but her legs refused to obey. The doll's eyes seemed to follow her from the dresser. She blinked. Its head had turned slightly. Eleanor gasped. The air grew colder. The shadows deepened, and the whispers returned, now clearer, multiple voices layered together. "Don't leave me. Stay. Stay with us." By the middle of the night, she could no longer differentiate between reality and nightmare. Every sound was amplified, the groan of the floorboards, the rustle of curtains, the soft thud of something moving in the dark. The doll seemed to watch, its eyes glinting faintly in the lamplight. Eleanor tried to scream, but no sound came out. She tried to move, but her body felt anchored to the bed. And then she saw it. The doll's mouth moved, slowly. A whisperless motion, but the meaning was clear. It wanted her to come closer. Its painted fingers stretched slightly, almost humanly. Eleanor's mind screamed at her to run, but some magnetic, unholy curiosity drew her forward. Step by trembling step, she approached the dresser. The room seemed to contract around her, the walls pressing inward. Her reflection in the mirror across the room was distorted, warped. Her own face twisted with terror, but the doll's reflection showed it smiling wider than ever, its eyes glinting with an impossible light. She tripped backward and fell to the floor. The lamp toppled, plunging the room into darkness. But she could still see, not with her eyes, but with that dreadful, creeping awareness that something was watching. The whispers became chanting, overlapping voices forming words she could not fully understand, but each syllable pressed against her skull like icy fingers. Come. Stay. Forever. The room smelled of cold iron and wet wood. Eleanor scrambled to her feet, heart hammering. She grabbed a chair, swinging it toward the doll, but when the light flickered back, the doll was gone. Not on the dresser, not on the floor. It had moved. Panic surged through her. She ran from room to room, calling out, but her own voice sounded distant, hollow, almost swallowed by the house itself. Every corner, every shadow seemed alive. Doors she knew were closed now opened slowly, creaking as if inviting her into darkness. In the attic, she swore she could see a figure, a small, dark silhouette sitting among broken toys, its head tilted. The doll. Her hands shook as she reached for the attic stairs. Step by step she climbed, the wood moaning beneath her weight. The air was thick, suffocating. And then she saw them, hundreds of tiny reflections in broken mirrors, glass shards and windows. Each one showed the doll, always watching, always moving, always waiting. Eleanor's knees buckled. She collapsed, pressed against the wall and shut her eyes. But the whispers didn't stop. They came from everywhere now. From the floor, the ceiling, the mirrors, the very walls themselves. Don't leave. Don't leave. Stay with us. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Eleanor could not tell. When she dared open her eyes, she found herself back in her bedroom, the doll on the dresser, as if nothing had happened. But nothing was the same. She could feel the house breathing, alive with intent. The doll's eyes glimmered, reflecting some hidden malignant joy. She knew she could not escape. She knew the doll would not allow it. It had claimed her attention, her fear, her reality, and tomorrow night it would claim more. Eleanor curled on her bed, shivering under the blankets. Every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind, every faint movement in the shadows reminded her of the doll. It was no longer just a toy, it was a presence, and it was patient. Because patience was all it needed. And Eleanor, alone, terrified, powerless, was exactly what it wanted.